Okay, I'm going to go over how to checkmate with two rooks, and white obviously should handily win this game, but in this checkmating pattern with two rooks, I believe that there's some very strong strategies and patterns with rooks that if you learn this checkmate, it's amazing how many other moves you find in other games, not just for checkmating, but also just strategy-wise and tactical-wise and things like that. So here's what I want to show in this scenario. Again, there's a pattern here that you just need to learn, and if you can learn, you can win this game handily and about as quickly as possible. And the key thing in this checkmating pattern is don't get your king involved. Okay, you got two rooks. Okay, your king actually really shouldn't have to do anything in this checkmate. So it's important to note that, let's say the rook on b3. Okay, the rook on b3 right now has a wall built, if you will, like here and here. Just envision a wall right here. It technically has a wall built on the B file too, so I mean I'll draw it here, but honestly that's not the one that I'm going to focus on. The reason I'm not going to focus on that is because what I would like is I'd like that rook to keep the wall built, because I want my king down here on c2 to stay away. I don't want my king to interfere at all, so I'd like the wall built so my king is on the opposite side as my opponent's king. Think of it that way, I guess. Okay, so I've got this wall built. Now, the pawn down here on g1 technically has its walls built too, but for now, it's not really, well, it's not doing what I want it to do right now. Okay, so here's what I want to do. I want one of my pieces to advance that wall of that rook right there. So my rook has a wall on the rank, on the third rank, and what I want is I want it to advance the wall. I want the wall to move up to the fourth rank, if you will. Now, I should consider both rooks to see which one can advance that wall nicely. And the g1 rook is not the rook I want to move. Note, if I try to move the g1 rook up to there to create a wall, that rook is going to be lost because the king can simply just take it. So that is not what I want to do. But what I want to do is advance the wall, so I'm going to do that with this b rook. I'm going to move it up here. And note what's happening now is that the rook on b4 now has advanced my wall here and here. So I'm now at the fourth rank. So now it's black's turn to move. Now, obviously, it can't move to the right because my other rook is blocking it off. So let's say my rook, or the king, decides to play over. Now, it's important to note again, I've got a wall built here. The black king cannot come towards my king at all. The black king cannot move towards my side of the board. The wall has been built. The rook on b4 is building that wall, or is holding that wall. So while one rook holds, the other one wants to check. So I am going to move my other rook up here to check the king. And when that happens, note, when that happens, now the wall from the b4 rook is holding the black king back. And now the g5 rook actually builds an advanced wall, or a wall that's advanced another, moves up the board one more space. So now the king is going to move. Now, if they're smart about it, the king should attack my rook, hoping that I make a mistake. Because if I don't see that, I'm going to lose my rook. Now, the rook that has the current wall built, the barrier for the black king, needs to keep it built. But they also don't want to get captured. So if they ever get attacked, I always say, hey, run away. Run away as far as you can. And so you run this rook away. Just don't stop here, because you don't want to interfere with your other rook. Just don't ever put the two rooks in the same rank or file, because you don't want them to interfere with each other. So I'm going to play that rook to a5. Note, it keeps its current wall. The king cannot advance. The king is just going to slide over. Now remember, the wall that is currently, the current wall, the wall that's doing its job now, stays. don't move it. Then check with the other rook. There's the check. And remember, I've got the current wall, and guess what? Somebody's just advanced a new wall, so now the king is going to have to play back. Now, my rook on b6 has the current structure, the current wall built that the king cannot go past, so I am going to check with the other rook. Again, wall built, new wall advances, the king is going to have to play back. Now, the a7 rook has the current built wall, but I sure better not check with this rook, because I would simply lose it. The king could just take me. So I would like to keep the wall built, but anytime I'm in a little bit of trouble, or I'm under attack, or I don't know what to do, I don't want the wall to change, so I'm going to take my other rook, my b6 rook, and I'm just going to slide it all the way to the other side of the board here. Now, the king, if they're smart, is going to play over to attack my rook, hoping I don't see it. At the same time, remember, that rook has this wall built. I don't want to lose that wall. If I do, and I'll play this for a second, if I play it back here, think about it. I have now lost my wall and allowed the king to play forward. So I don't want to do that. I want to keep this wall built, and when you're in trouble, or you don't know what to do, or you can't check like you want to, you run away as far as you can without blocking your other rook. So I'm actually going to run all the way here. I don't want to block my rook in. I just want to sit right here, and there's my current wall still there. Now the black king is really nowhere that's going to go to be good, and this game's over, because the second they move, remember, I've got a wall built. I'm going to advance my other rook, and that's checkmate, because there's a wall trapping that king in. It's also a check, and that king has nowhere to go, nowhere to hide, cannot capture a rook, and has nothing left that it can do to stop this. This is checkmate, game over. So, note the patterns in this video as you move. Yeah, I could do this checkmate in a different direction technically, and maybe I'll do that here. Let me see if I can't clear all the markings. Now let's just say I'm going to do this a different way. Let's say this rook now has a wall built, and I'm gonna drive the king to the left. Now a little bit of a problem here is my king's in the way, and that's going to bug me. But here we go. Let's say the king play is over like this. All right, now remember, I've got this wall I was utilizing, but what I'm trying to do is advance that wall. Now my wall's going to the left. If I wanted to go left, I could go up again, but I'll go to the left here. And now, if the king is wise, it will try to attack my rook. And this rook I have has the newly formed wall, so I am going to run away because he's under attack. I'm going to run him away. And now this king, if it's smart, should try to get into a position to attack one of my rooks. Let's say he comes down towards my king, hoping to create issues with my king. Now I have, again, a wall built here, so I'm going to check with my other rook. Now this king is not allowed to move to the right because I have my wall built, and my new rook has created a new wall. Not to mention, amongst all of that, my king is guarding this square, so their king is going to have to play over, or up and over. But now notice my newly advanced wall, so the pattern is check with my other rook. I've got a nice wall. I've built a new one that's checking the king. My king is blocking an escape square. Their king is going to have to start to play out of here. Now, here's where things can get a little bit fishy. I've got this nice wall built. There's a little bit of a problem. My king is in the way, because this rook is not really a check. The king's in the way. Now, that's not going to help me a whole lot. Or will it? This is kind of a lesson into why I don't like to do this rook stepping, or they call it a ladder mate or a lawnmower mate. I don't like to do this wherever my king is. I like to drive them away from my king. But I could still play my rook here. It's not a check, but it's important to note that the rook is still got this wall built. So as this king decides where to move, let's say they move up to try to attack my rook. They want to get closer. Now my goal is, still got this wall built on the d file, and my rook's not under attack. But what I want is I want my king out of here. I don't need my king. It's just causing problems. So I'm going to actually move my king out of the way to either d1 or d2. And it's important to note that the wall is still there, but I have a new discovered check with the rook that was behind the king. And so now this black king is going to have to move, and they are hoping that I make a mistake now. I've got my c1 rook here with the beautiful wall. If I try to check right now, I lose my rook. I don't want to do that. I want to keep my wall, and I really need this rook to play a check. So I'm going to run it away. There's my king kind of in the way again, but I'll be okay. So they're going to have to come back to try to attack. But I have a wall built with a new check right here. And now, the two rooks keeping the two walls built, the king is going to have to run away. And now I will have checkmate as I play my rook over. So note how the two rooks are working together. One builds a wall, the other one checks. One holds the wall, the other one checks. If you're ever in trouble, you don't know what to do, you're under attack, the best scenario is run away as far as you can. Just don't have your two rooks block each other off. So go ahead and set up a board with two rooks and even a king, and practice that. Make sure that you can checkmate with the two rook mate, or lawnmower mate, or ladder mate, whatever you want to call this, flawlessly. Practice, practice, practice. Good luck.